So recently I have been building a new feature for my SaaS application called Dinnerbee, which is a platform for couples and families and folks who live together to plan their meals throughout the week as efficiently as possible. And so a little while ago, I fully launched Dinnerbee, and I'll leave a link down in the description if you want to check it out. But recently I've been building a new feature, and it's kind of insane to say this, but this is the first feature that I have ever built with AI, not only in this application, but ever. I'm a software engineer in my day-to-day, but I just haven't really touched AI at all, which is nuts. So it's kind of been a nice learning opportunity, and I want to take this video to talk about some of the things that I got out of this experience in terms of kind of just all of the things and the thought process that goes behind building a feature like this, including cost considerations, technologies used, libraries, all this kind of stuff that goes into these decisions, kind of the problems and challenges that I ran into and how I was able to overcome those. So yeah, let's just hop right into this. I got a nice little diagram that goes through all of the trials and tribulations that I've had over the past few days. First off, let's make myself smaller because I'm in the way. And so this feature is a website to recipe feature. So essentially, in my application, you're able to create recipes and schedule those throughout the week. And it's really tedious to have to manually create all of your recipes. So one feature that I've known that I've had to build for a while, but just haven't really gotten around to it, is this website to recipe feature. And this kind of goes into a question of how do you decide on which features to build in your application? And now that I am fully launched, it kind of goes into these three categories. So essentially, I want to build features that are marketable. So a lot of my marketing is going to focus around social media and specifically TikTok. So I want to build like sexy features, essentially. I want to build features that I'll be able to create video content about. And so this feature is a really nice feature to showcase that. You know, we can just input a website URL and boom, spit out the recipe that is in Dinnerbee. And from there, we can do all the amazing things within Dinnerbee once you have recipes. That's kind of the barrier to entry, though, is you do need some recipes in order to start getting value out of it. I've also gotten some feedback from influencers that I've been talking to lately, and going back to the marketing material aspect of this, this was something that they were asking for essentially, and said this would be a real game changer and something that they know that their audience would really resonate with if they had this type of feature. So that kind of just gave me the extra push that I needed to actually go ahead and build this thing. And just this last bullet point here is on competitors. If you are building an application that's not in a brand new niche, you're going to have some competition, and it's really nice to kind of look at what they're doing, what kind of features are they building. And so I've noticed that some of the competitors in my space have this capability, and I want to make sure that I am able to offer this to my users as well. Okay, so that is some background on the feature and why I'm even building it in the first place. Now let's go over to the AI side of things and, you know, the problems that I kind of ran into along the way. So first off, got to decide which AI model to choose. I decided to go with OpenAI. At the time of recording this, it is definitely the most widely adopted in the developer community and has tons of documentation and things that I can reference while I'm doing this for the first time. The pricing model also worked for me and works for my business use case. So all of those things lended themselves to this decision to choose OpenAI. But not long after I decided to go with OpenAI, I ran into my first problem. The first problem is that the back end of my application is a Spring Boot backend with Java, and Java is not one of the languages that is currently supported by OpenAI. So there are some community-supported platforms and libraries for incorporating the OpenAI into a Java web server, and that is the route that I went down. I went over to this OpenAI Java, which if you go over to the libraries section of the OpenAI documentation, you'll see that there are, of course, the official REST API libraries, which are in TypeScript and Python. And I guess actually .NET has one too. But Java is in beta. And if we go over to the actual GitHub repository of this itself, it is actively being supported, which is really important in terms of choosing a library. That is great. But because it's not officially supported, you run into a few problems. First being, you don't know if at some point it will stop being supported, maybe in the near future or maybe never. It could just stop being updated, and future releases of the OpenAI API are not going to make it into this library, which would be a huge problem. And secondly, which is the real problem that I ran into, is the code itself necessary to handle structured outputs, which is a very important piece of this AI puzzle for me. See, because when I'm trying to generate this website to recipe response, essentially, I need to make sure that the response I'm getting from the OpenAI API is consistent every single time. That way I'm doing business logic after I get this data, and I am actually creating recipes in my backend. And I need to know that I'm always dealing with the same type of data. But I just want to show y'all the code required to set up these structured outputs and these JSON schemas that come from the OpenAI API response in Java, and just see what it looks like in this library currently. So essentially this is what we're dealing with at the moment, is currently how you would set up a schema, a structured response type for the following type. All it is an object with an employee's property of an array of strings. And it's these 4 lines of code, and it's already incredibly difficult to read. And the actual structured response that I need to return in order to create recipes is a lot more complex than this. It's got about a half dozen properties. There are nested properties. And so the code required to just set up this structured response and then also maintain it, and then potentially add more fields in the future, and also just extend this to other kind of response types that I want in the future, lended itself to a decision to actually abandon using this library in my application and in my approach, because like I mentioned here, it truly is not sustainable at the moment, just in terms of maintainability and readability in my own application, and just the mental toll that comes with having to set up these types. And here really is the kicker, is there is this to do that is just in the code right now to update this once we support extracting JSON schemas from Java classes. And that's really the big thing, is if it could just map a Java POJO over to a response object that I would expect from the API, that would be amazing and super easy, because I already have these POJOs. But unfortunately, this library is just not there at this point. So with all that being said, I decided to take a little bit of a different approach. And that's what's cool about software and about having context and knowledge of other systems, is you can pivot. If something just isn't working for you, you have the ability to pivot to something else, and that is exactly what I did. So like I said, I have my Spring Boot backend that's written in Java. But instead of calling the OpenAI API from that Spring Boot backend, I decided to write an AWS Lambda function in Node.js, which is an officially supported language by OpenAI. And what this means for me is I was able to do this in way fewer lines of code, and it's way more readable and it's way more maintainable. So if I need to add to this in the future or add different response types, it's going to be a lot easier. What's also nice is from this Lambda, I'm able to call into AWS Secrets Manager to make sure that I'm managing my OpenAI API key outside of any of this environment. And just everything kind of just works out really nice. I'm able to invoke this Lambda from my Spring Boot backend. And so I get the response that I would expect from this OpenAI call, and then I can do any other business logic that I need to do once I have that response inside of my backend. Alrighty, so we solved problem number 1. By choosing some different technologies and a different approach, we were able to solve that problem pretty efficiently, I would say. But here comes problem number 2. So what about the content that is actually coming back from this prompt? So the input for this prompt is a website URL. And all I want to do essentially is take the information on that URL, on that web page, and run it through ChatGPT, essentially just run it through ChatGPT and say, hey, can you give me the recipe information? So this is just title, it's the cook duration, the number of servings, the ingredients, the directions, all of these things. I need that from the web page, and I need ChatGPT to summarize it for me. So the problem is the model obviously can't access the internet. So how do we actually get the content from the web page over to the model? So again, in order to solve this problem, we have to get a little bit creative, and we can use something like Puppeteer, which creates a headless browser and can navigate on your behalf to a particular URL. And then if we needed to do some kind of web scraping, so in this case, just scraping all of the text off of the website, we can do that. And it's really nice, and we can put this in front of our call over to OpenAPI so that we have some data to actually feed it. We can say, hey, given all of the text on this website, and then we actually have all the text, not just a website URL. Given all of this text, can you summarize it and give me the recipe information that I need? All right, now that is all fine and dandy as well, but here's where we run into problem number 3, and that is cost. So the thing about how pricing models work for the OpenAI API is it is determined off of token. And so as we can see here, the OpenAI's large language models, they process text using tokens, which are a common sequence of characters found in a set of text. And that is how it determines how to bill you. So if we go back over to pricing, we can see that, so I'm actually using the GPT-4 mini model, which is the lowest cost model at the moment, and it should be plenty for what I'm trying to achieve. But the price per 1 million tokens is 15 cents, and that is for input. So whatever you give it, if you give it 1 million tokens, it's going to cost 15 cents. And similarly for output, we can see that we're charged 60 cents per 1 million tokens returned back to us from these API calls. So if we come back over to this diagram, we can start to see the problem that cost potentially can play if we are just scraping all of the text off of a given web page that a user is supplying to us, and we don't really have any great way to validate whether or not this is a web page that has a recipe on it. It could be something that isn't actually going to even be able to return recipe information. It also could have a ton of text on it. A lot of these recipe websites might have blogs at the bottom of the page, and if we're scraping all of the text off of the web page, we might see all of the blog information come back in that response as well. And just to kind of give some actual numbers on what I mean here is, if we take this random recipe for beef stew, and we can just use something like this to simulate what we would do in Puppeteer. So we're just grabbing all of the text from this website. This one looks like it might not be too bad. So there's only 1,766 words on this web page. And, that's not a ton of words coming back. Maybe there are some websites out there that would return even more words than that. But if we go over to this tokenizer, we can see how many tokens that this input would be. And we can see from those 1,700 words, this would be 2,500 tokens. So now let's do some more math. So remember, we're going to be charged 15 cents for every 1 million tokens that we supply to the API. So if we do 1 million divided by these like 2,500 tokens, let's say, you could see we would have to generate 400 recipes for a web page of this size before we even got charged 15 cents. So that is a cost that I'm definitely comfortable incurring at my current user base. But obviously this is something that you kind of have to take into consideration as you're building these. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you might start losing money on the amount of money that you might have to spend on a third-party API call. And of course that is just for input tokens as well. In terms of output tokens, so the response that is generated back to you after the API is called, you can see that that is more expensive than the input ones. But so far I've been seeing that the average response token given back to me from my structured response output is anywhere from like 200 to 300 tokens. So this is going to be like very, very minimal. One thing that is cool and that OpenAI allows you to do is set a max completion token number. We're able to set a max number of tokens that would ever be consumed by a single API call. So if we never wanted more than 2,500 tokens to be consumed or used, then we could just set that as the max. And for example, if this one actually just, we would get an error on this saying that this request would take more tokens than were allocated. And then that's a good way to make sure that we're not spending crazy amounts of money accidentally. The other aspect of this is the cost of Lambda invocations and secrets read from Secrets Manager, but these are going to be almost negligible. I think it will be very difficult given my current user base to actually ever incur charges from this. But at some point, of course, that is something to consider. So really that leaves me just with this last question of what is a reliable amount of max completion tokens that we can set so that we know that the majority of recipes can be created no matter how much text is actually on that web page, but at the same time making sure that we don't incur too much of a cost by sending these huge requests over to the API. But yeah, that should wrap this one up. I just wanted to take y'all in on kind of some of the thought process and the problem solving that goes goes into building a new feature, especially in a landscape that I have not really touched before. So it's been super interesting learning all the things that I've learned so far, and I'm happy to share that with y'all. Like I said, if you want to check out Dinnerbee, there is a link for it down in the description. Check it out, peruse, see what you think. But definitely subscribe for some more in-depth technical discussions around things that I'm building. I love to do these kinds of chats, so let me know if you enjoy this type of content down in the comment section below. I would really appreciate that. But yeah, that'll wrap it up. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.